Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. All right, my friends, let's get to it. We got 35 minutes of non-stop in your face doom and gloom news for you today. We condense it all into one video. Unlike other channels, and I ain't throwing shade, we don't separate it into 5-minute, 7-minute bits that you got to go and find the piece of information. We're giving it to you all in one power punch of doomsday information. So let's just jump right to it. Now, please click like, comment, subscribe. These videos take a bit of work. I know it just seems like I get on here and I'm just riffing things off and reading stuff, but it actually does take a lot of research and mental processing. So if you could help me out with a like and a comment, that would be much appreciated. Now, before we get started, I want to show you guys something, okay? I've showed you this in the past, but it's just getting out of control now. This is an old Mountain House package, 193 grams. The total calories in this package of mac and cheese are 960, okay? This is the new one. Looks great, doesn't it? Well, it's a lot lighter. 620 calories and only 128 grams, okay? Nearly a 30 to 35% reduction in the actual amount of food. The exact same product for pretty much the exact same price because the shipping costs and the PPI costs have went up on this. Food is absolutely absurd in terms of the inflation and the shrinkflation that we're seeing in the markets. Now, the one company that hasn't had that happen yet is Peak Refuel. They're too new of a company. They haven't learned to cut corners yet. They probably will at some point. This is 142 grams. This is 810 calories. Their meals tend to be between 700 to about 1100 calories. You want to look at the calories, but that's not all you want to look for because quality is important. I know there's a lot of people who grew up in the city their entire lives and they have it in their minds that if the apocalypse happens or SHTF, that they will eat anything. They will eat bugs. The reality is no, you won't. Your palate is still going to be the same and there's going to be a learning curve. Yes, you know, if you haven't eaten in 7 days, you're probably going to start eating, you know, your leather belt if that's the only thing within reach. However, I will say that these companies who are selling you the big buckets of food, like the 30-day supply, 60, 90-day supply, do not buy that stuff before tasting it because 90% of it, there's a reason why it's cheap. And any company, I'm talking about retailers now, many of them compete with us. And I'm not going to be throwing out names because we don't sell that crap for a reason. We could sell it. We could make a wicked margin. It would be very easy. We could make very large orders because what happens is a lot of people who are well-to-do with disposable income, they start Googling prepping, how to prepare for SHTF. They immediately go and stock up and buy thousands of dollars worth of this stuff. But it's disgusting. It's not good for you, okay? Just like psychologically, these companies don't actually care about their customers. They're hoping that you stuff it in your closet and never use it again. They're hoping for a one-hit wonder. So I'm warning you, if you're going to buy freeze-dried food, buy the good stuff or just get yourself a freeze dryer because you'll actually consume it and it will retain its value. Now, there's a website. I don't know what the hell, how do you pronounce this? Verbrocher Zenschral. It's a German website, okay? Just Google Germany shrinkflation and this article will come up which will take you to this website. This goes into the different shrinkflation that they're seeing in Germany right now. I really wish there was an equivalent of this in Canada or the United States. So this website shows you, okay? So look here, we got, I don't know what the heck this is, some product, but it shows you that there's 25% shrinkflation that has occurred with that particular product. And they take you through this list. We got strawberry and jam. This is the new this is the new product. This is the old product. 24% reduction in what's inside. So this is how they get you. So you think that the price of the food hasn't, like when you're actually checking out, if you're in Germany, your bill is the same, but for some reason your food is only lasting you 3 weeks instead of 4 weeks. So it's a very, very sneaky way of changing things. Now, I love Mountain House food, but they are also guilty of doing the same thing here. So as great as that Mountain House food is, 25-year shelf life freeze-dried food, delicious tasting stuff, unfortunately, they are not immune to these sort of marketing gimmicks. So just something for you to keep in mind, that all companies are doing this now, and sometimes they will try to disguise it as being as a matter of convenience. Like I was out the other day and I seen these little tiny bottles of Coca-Cola, and I'm thinking to myself, you know, that's actually not a bad idea, because maybe I don't want to drink a whole Coke. You know, maybe I just want a quick shot, a quick buzz of, you know, caffeine or whatever it is. But they get you into that, and then before you know it, the bigger size of the bottles has been reduced, but by comparison to these little tiny ones, they still look really big. So there's a lot of crazy marketing gimmicks, all right? Now, before we get into talking about the war with China, before we talk about the Russian situation, which is getting way, way out of control, and everything else under the sun, I want to show you guys this other website, okay? This is called Climate E-Check. Now, what's interesting about this website is I think it would be great if some prepper techie out there could make a website like this for strategic relocation. So how the website works is, if you go in, you just enter let's say, a city, Las Vegas. Okay, that's the one I just had up there. It's going to tell you the climate risk range of that place. Now, why this is so important, guys, is because with all these shortages right now with water, you know, you have the Danube River drying up, the Colorado River, the Rhine River, the Thames River, all of these rivers all across Europe and North America that are drying up because of receding glaciers and all the rest. Having a water source on your property is the number one thing. Okay, what is that saying? That whiskey is for drinking and water is for fighting over? That is the absolute truth. This is why I've never understood why people would move to Nevada at this point in time. Maybe people have some reasons. Maybe you can prove me wrong. But the fact is that if you're relying on wells and aquifers, the aquifers and the well water is drying up 7 times faster than the actual above ground water source. So you absolutely need to make sure, and this is why I haven't been able to really lock in a property yet, because there needs to be a abundant or unlimited source of water there. And we're going to talk about rainwater apparently now is too toxic to drink. We'll talk about that in a minute. But this website is neat. Now, I wish there was some prepper techie out there who could factor in a few other variables into this. So it shows you the drought risk, the heat risk, the storm risk, the flood risk, the fire risk, and then it gives you an estimated risk range. For Vegas, it's very, very high. Okay, when this says 1 to 100, that means that very, very high risk. Obviously, drought is going to be the big thing there. When the river dries up, there's not going to be any electricity. Now, unless they build some kind of nuclear power plant or something like that. I wish they would include things like population density, okay? Maybe even water abundance, water scarcity. They do show drought, and the inverse of that is probably going to be water. But they could also show things like, what is the hardiness zone? You know, what sort of vegetation can grow there? Is there a lot of wildlife that can be hunted? You know, is animal husbandry going to be feasible? Is there enough grass to feed cows? Things of that nature. I really think somebody could put together an app, and I know some of you watch this channel to steal my ideas. I'm cool with that. This one's gold, okay? I hope you guys are listening. Factor all those in and create some sort of calculation based on, you know, whatever part of the map, depending on your elevation, latitude, longitude, all those factors combined, population density, and make a strategic location app. There's $1 million idea for you, and I'm pretty sure you could utilize that in some form of consulting to help people dial down what is the number one place to ride out the end of disease. All right, there you go. Now, where should we go? Let's go to China first, because things are getting messy there. Will China mess with U.S. warships that are headed for the Taiwan Strait? Now, if you didn't know, well, I'm sure you probably did know, Pelosi went there, first of all. That was the first provocation. Now they're sending this delegation of congressmen and women to Taiwan. That's already taken place as well. So the Chinese are really upset about that. The Chinese are pissed that a Lithuanian government official has went there recently as well. I didn't talk about this last week, but they were so upset, and this is a big, big red flag right here, guys. Not enough people are talking about this, but 5 major Chinese conglomerates have delisted from the New York Stock Exchange, one of which is PetroChina, which at one point, to the best of my knowledge, was one of the biggest companies in the world, okay? This is what you don't want to see. This is that really abrupt, aggressive decoupling which we would see in the run-up to the war. Yes, the Chinese are stockpiling grain. Yes, the Russians and the Chinese are stockpiling gold. We know that what is happening is a preparation for a major, major conflict in the future. But this is one of those things, when you're delisting major Chinese companies from the New York Stock Exchange, that's probably one of the biggest indicators that we are starting to sever those international trade ties. Anyways, we got these U.S. warships heading to the Taiwan Strait for no other reason than I can find asides provocation. Now, again, I don't have the grand scheme, the big picture necessarily. I don't know what our intelligence agencies know. I'm not, working at the Fed. I don't know what the strategy is going to be to prevent de-dollarization and prevent the dethroning of the U.S. dollar. This is likely a part of that. There's obviously other reasons why they want Taiwan with the chips and all the rest. Obviously, the U.S. military relies on those chips. But it seems very suspicious to me that we're prodding the dragon in this way. And Henry Kissinger has came out and said in the last few days that we are on the brink of World War III with 2 superpowers, China and Russia. Within the span of literally 6 months, we are now we're at an all-time low with our relations, our Sino-American relations, and at an all-time low with our Russia relations. Now, this means that all of our preparedness efforts, as much as there's a bit of a lull right now, the markets have kind of stabilized a little bit. Gas prices have kind of come down, and people are, to me, I just think this is kind of the calm before the storm, because we are going to see an energy crisis as a result of all this climate chaos around the world that's exacerbating the already existing supply chain issues due with the war and COVID, all the rest. We are going to see food shortages. We are going to see water shortages. So it's only a matter of time before the war happens. At least, I know it's very pessimistic of me to believe that, but I mean, I don't see a way out of this at this point. It doesn't seem like any party wants to give, because when you have this sort of needless provocation of sailing these warships, you could say it's international waters or whatever you want, but is it really the right thing to do at this point in time? China is also furious with Lithuania over Taiwan, is suspending all imports and declares an economic war against them. I don't understand what Lithuania is trying to do. Maybe they're trying to get in NATO's good books, because we're going to talk in a minute about what they are planning to do in the Baltic Sea with Russia. Lithuania has been under constant Chinese pressure to reverse last year's decision to allow Taiwan to open a de facto embassy in the capital, Vilnius, under its own name. China has downgraded diplomatic relations with Lithuania and pressured multinational ties with it. So I don't know what the economic motives are there. Maybe Lithuania is going to start making chips. I don't know, but it is not looking good. The rhetoric that the Chinese have been using against the Americans is only intensifying. It's at an all-time high. These are very, very scary times that we're in, and it's easy to get desensitized to it, but don't take your eye off the prize, because things could flare up at any minute. Now, there's all sorts of other things happening with this war rhetoric with Putin. There's talk of potentially banning Russians from being able to travel anywhere in Europe. But the biggest point of concern with respect to how the war between Russia and the United States could intensify is this. If the United States designates Russia a state sponsor of terrorism, which appears to already have congressional support in the House of Representatives, what it doesn't have is the support of Joe Biden just yet, or Anthony Blinken, who said that this might not be a good idea at this point in time. However, at any moment, they could effectively say that, Russia is a state sponsor of terrorism, and this has been viewed as one of those points of no return in terms of diplomatic relations. Once this happens, okay, that's when we are really, really on the razor's edge of nuclear Armageddon. I mean, right now we are more so than ever before, but if this happens, this means that now those diplomatic channels are basically entirely severed. And I'm not saying that it would be hopeless at that point. Look, we've seen the Iran nuclear deal apparently come back to light, which may flood the market with more oil, although I don't believe that the Iranians are going to trust any deal that they ink with the Americans, and I don't think anybody who's on that side of the table, whether it's Russia or Syria, whoever is involved in brokering this deal with the JCPOA, I don't think they're going to put a lot of stock in signing any sort of agreement with the Americans. So that's where it's still very sketchy, right? And people are still, and that incentivizes them to still do things in secret. And because the Americans probably are aware that nobody trusts them anymore, and I say the Americans, I mean the American government, I don't mean you wonderful people out there, we're all just pawns in the same system, then I would be very concerned that situation still has a potential to spiral out of control as well. Henry Kissinger, just get this over with. He talked about how the U.S. is on the brink of war with Russia and China. We are at the edge of war with Russia and China on issues which we partly created without any concept of how this is going to end or what it is supposed to lead to. Now, Kissinger is 99 years old. He's been around for a long time. A lot of people don't like him. A lot of people think that he's a bit of a war criminal himself. I don't know enough about his history to really comment on that. But I will say that he does, at least right now, argue that the U.S. should seek an equilibrium between itself, Russia, and China, as opposed to trying to dominate the other side in hopes of not going into World War III with those countries, okay? What else do we got here? Poland has this plan for an EU-wide Russian visa plan, not really gaining a lot of support among the big players like France and Germany, but you just never know. They're really pushing it. The Baltic states are very, very concerned about this widening war in Europe, and whether it's Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, they're all doing things right now which are very, very antagonistic. It seems almost in the hopes of maybe provoking a reaction right now while the United States is still in there and willing to have their back. The Ukrainian nuclear site, the Zaporizhzhia power plant, which is currently under occupation by the Russians, is facing a new potential disaster because apparently there's a hydroelectric facility that services the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. So this is what provides backup systems and it provides the cooling system, powers the cooling system for the spent fuel rods. So this would potentially be a disaster if this facility, this hydroelectric facility that services the power plant, was destroyed. Now, based on what I've heard, these reactors are incredibly fortified. Okay, they're not like the old school reactors. It's a relatively newer nuclear reactor, and I can't remember the exact amount of thickness, but there's several feet of concrete, okay, that that you would have to, even the shelling that they're doing now, even if there was a direct hit, they're saying that the likelihood of it resulting in a nuclear incident is very low, which is not to say it can't happen. But so this is concerning because this means that even though it is well fortified, there are other ways to cause a nuclear disaster, one of which is to destroy the hydroelectric facility that allows the cooling of those spent fuel rods. We talked about the state sponsor of terrorism. All right, so now this is another interesting story here. So there's something going on in the Baltic Sea, okay? So this is a map of all of the Baltic Sea naval forces. It's very low resolution. And it shows you, Sweden's hand in this, Finland's hand in this, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. Here's Kaliningrad, okay? This is the Russian exclave. And all of the warships that are in Kaliningrad. The Finnish and the Estonians are trying to block off the Russians from having access to the Baltic Sea via St. Petersburg. So the Baltic fleet may be confined to the Kaliningrad region and a small part of the Gulf of Finland near St. Petersburg, with limited operational space for naval maneuvers in the event of an emergency. Now, this, of course, will be an extreme provocation for the Russians if they decide to set up some sort of missile systems here and prevent Russian ships from having access to the Baltic Sea. Now, I think that, when we're talking about tit for tat, the Russian naval presence is quite comparable. The Baltic fleet includes 32 major surface combatants, 3 cruisers, 3 destroyers, 26 frigates, more than 230 surface vessels, roughly 208 naval aircraft, 9 tactical submarines, and a brigade of naval infantry. Probably a bunch of other S-400 missile defense systems as well. So, the Russians probably could put up a fight when it came to their naval power, but let's get real. I mean, there's only one of these countries that has a shitload of nuclear weapons, and that's this country right here. And I mean, that can't be overstated. It's a fact of life. The Russians have coastal missile system capabilities, which could take out a lot of these ships. So I think that this is just one more of those provocations, one of those needless provocations, just like what happened in Kaliningrad, where you have a lot of these Baltic countries trying to get the jump on things because maybe they see the writing on the wall. They see that the war is coming to them in the future, and better to start a fight, I guess, when your enemy is preoccupied elsewhere, right? JP Morgan's CEO, Jamie Dimon, has told his wealthy clients there's a chance the U.S. is heading into something worse than a recession, okay? He says that we could be set for a prolonged economic downturn that would feel worse than a recession, and shrugged off the impact of upcoming midterm elections and what effect that could have on the markets. And this guy is very hawkish on the war with China for some reason. This is why, I mean, these guys might have a better sense of the grand scheme calculus of the de-dollarization. And, he's talking in this article about how we need to compete with the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative, going into these other countries and exerting our influence and things of that nature. Interesting article. It appears, that if this guy is saying that, we're going to see something worse than a recession, I'm inclined to take what he's saying. I believe that he was one of the people at JP Morgan who did say that we would see, potentially $300 oil this summer. Of course, that did not come to pass yet. We've seen some supply-demand destruction. On the one hand, we've also seen other sources of oil come onto the market. So that has, at least for the time being, deferred that disaster to down the road a ways. But which is not to say that it cannot still happen, okay? Now, there's an interesting article that was released recently. This is a research paper. I can't remember which, this is in Nature Food, okay? This is an article which talks about how a nuclear war would lead to the deaths of 5 billion people. This was just released not too long ago. Nuclear war between the US and Russia would cause a global famine and kill more than 5 billion people, study finds. Now, even if you are one of these people who believes in mutually assured destruction, 5 billion people ain't 8 billion. That means 3 billion people are going to survive what a lot of people think would be the ultimate in end of the world scenarios. So that means that there's going to be a 30% chance that you would survive. So for all of those fatalists out there who think, well, I'm just going to die, I don't want to survive that anyways, chances are you would survive. And I actually don't agree with this article because I don't think that the World War III would play out as it indicates. It's factoring in a major conflict which would see cities targeted, which in many military strategy, whether it's the Russians or the United States, the point is not really to target the cities. The point is to dump every single thing you possibly can into the other guy's military so they can't strike back. And then you hold the cities for ransom with your surplus of nukes that the other guy no longer has, okay? But this is a very interesting article. They talk about how several years after nuclear war, how it would take about 12 to 15 years for surface temperatures to come back, how it would trigger ice ages, mini ice ages and things of that nature. It also talks about how even a localized war, nuclear war between India and Pakistan would potentially cause the death of up to 2 billion people in just that limited exchange. And that is due to all of the issues which would arise as a result of the collapsing supply chain and whatnot. So very, very interesting article. You can go read it. Global insecurity, famine, and reduced crop, marine fishery, and livestock production due to climate disruption from nuclear war suit injection. Very interesting stuff. Now, another bit of research that came out today. A quarter of the U.S. will fall inside an extreme heat belt in the future. Here are the states that are in the red zone. Now, this is related to this climate e-check website that I was talking about earlier. So this is kind of information that they've derived. They're basically saying that by 2050, and I would say that this is a very, very conservative estimate, we're likely going to see this much quicker, but the amount of 125-degree days is going to drastically increase, in some cases triple, okay? So, for example, according to the First Street, the most severe shift in local temperatures is found in Miami-Dade County in Florida, where the 7 hottest days, currently at 103 degrees Fahrenheit, will increase to 34 days at that same temperature by 2050. So that's nearly 5 times the amount of hot days, okay? We're going to have Guy McPherson on in the next couple weeks, so stay tuned for that. Now, this is a very interesting and very concerning article, but I'm not sure what to make of it. You guys tell me. Rainwater is now unsafe to drink due to forever chemicals, study says. Now, if I'm not saying that this is what's happening, but if I was like, the elite and I wanted to, and I believe, just putting on my tinfoil hat for a second here. I don't actually believe this. We're just riffing. But if I was the elite and I didn't want people to be self-reliant, I would say, don't drink the rainwater because it's poisonous, which is not to say it's not true. And I think this study actually does have a lot of science to back it up. So a study published by scientists from Stockholm University reports that rainfall in extremely isolated regions has concerning levels of hazardous human-made chemicals, which suggests that there is no longer any place on Earth where rainwater is safe to drink. The chemicals of concern are things I can't pronounce. I'll attempt to. Perfluoroalkyl and perfluoroalkyl substances, PFAS, because they are highly resistant to degrading, meaning that they persist in the environment or human body for years and sometimes infinitely. Over time, winds and rain carry these forever chemicals across oceans and continents until they land somewhere and begin accumulating. Now, they say that these can cause cancer, infertility, pregnancy complications, diabetes, increased cholesterol, and immune system problems. Now, isn't it weird how nature equalizes things, like the equilibrium of nature, how it's kind of balancing out, how if we are having such a negative impact on the environment, this is the environment's way of making sure that we can't continue to breed anymore by poisoning the water and ensuring that we're going to become infertile, and that's going to lower the amount of population growth that we're seeing. Something to consider anyways, guys. Is it, how much stock do I put in it? I don't know. I'm certain, like they're saying here that the chemical levels from these remote locations often exceed the recommended limit outlined by the US. Now, is that like 0.000 whatever per million? And, how much of this would you have to consume? A Berkey water filtration system will take out some chemicals. There's even the arsenic and fluoride reduction filters that you can get if that's something you're concerned about. So there are ways around this, but, not very good when you can't even drink the rainwater anymore. I'll drink water off a glacier-fed lake or river any day of the week. I'm not one of these people who thinks, oh no, there might be a, beaver somewhere. You go the Athabasca River, one of these fast-flowing rivers where the water is just like completely, it's either crystal clear or it's like this mineral kind of teal green sort of color. I'll drink that water any day of the week. I mean, there's some people who are paranoid to drink that water, and to me that's just stupid. I mean, that's the best water there is on earth. But if they're saying that the rainwater is toxic, then that's concerning. Europe is facing its worst drought in 500 years. Probably not a good thing. We've talked about that ad nauseum, and it appears like there is some relief coming now in France and in UK, but not nearly enough to make up for the damage that has already been done. And I will say, guys, that this is just all the more reason you need to really take this strategic relocation seriously, because the time may come where the food system just collapses. This is the other reason, is that the United Nations worst case scenario calculation is that global food prices will rise by an additional 8.5% by 2027. Well, I'm not sure who does those calculations, because the current inflation rate is already more than, I guess, like 13.1%. So I mean, this is just stupid on its face. So you're telling me that the inflation rate is only going to be compounded by 8.5% by 2027? I think this is BS. Anyways, the reason why I pulled this article is because they're talking about how if we don't have enough fertilizers, if we cease using fertilizers to grow food, then half the population is going to die. Okay, the cost of fertilizer has in some cases went up 300 to 400%. Of course, you're having governments put a lot of these restrictions on fertilizer because it is a very, very potent greenhouse gas, almost rivals methane in terms of its potency. I'm not saying I agree with the approach they're taking, but what I'm saying is that eventually, whether it's due to government regulation or just a shortfall caused by the war, we are going to not have the amount of fertilizer that we need to grow the types of food, or it's just going to be so expensive, and ultimately those costs are going to be felt at the end consumer level, which is why I don't understand this United Nations worst case scenario calculation. It's going to be an additional 8.5% in just a few months. That's the real scary thing about inflation. People just say, okay, it's 13.5% now. But no, it's going to be at least 10% same time next year. So it's going to have gone up another 10%. That's why inflation is so damn scary, because it's like compound. It's like compound interest. So very, very concerning stuff. All the more reason to, live your life, enjoy your life, but make sure that you are prepping. One of Peter Schiff's main pieces of advice, and he's coming on the channel this Friday, is to buy food. If you want to, hedge against inflation, one of the best things you can do is buy things that you already know you're going to use in the future. If you know that, a shaving razor is going to go up by 20% come next year, then buy more razors. They're not going to go bad. Buy things that are not going to go bad, but are perishable, things that you require, things that you need. So yeah, I think that's about all I have to talk about today. Let me know what you guys think about any of these stories in the comments section below. And yeah, let's talk about it. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy it. And remember, my friends, support a store who actually cares about you. Because I'm telling you right now, these companies who sell that stuff, and some of them are my competitors, there are retail stores who, I don't know if they just haven't tried this stuff themselves, but if they're selling this stuff, guys, they don't care about the consumer. They don't care about your experience when you find yourself in a disaster and you're relying on that food and you are cursing the name of the company. They're not going to care because they're going to be long gone. We don't sell that crap for a reason, and it's because we have integrity with the business. And I don't want you to be cursing my name, all right? Anyways, guys, go check it out, CanadianPreparedness.com. Thanks for watching, and let me know your thoughts on what we discussed today. Canadian Prepper out.